Hey folks, welcome to this episode on our kind of explanation of what's happening in the gas lab, as well as a little breakdown on how to perform the calculations. Now, this is a prequel to the video that I released regarding the actual gas lab calculations, where we take the example I'm going to give you a little bit below and work through the actual numbers. In this video, we're going to do a high-level overview of the individual steps in order to get that, as well as just an overall idea of what the lab is all about. So I've drawn a pretty rudimentary setup over here. We have an Erlenmeyer flask right over here, and we have a rubber stopper that has a delivery tube that goes into a graduated cylinder within what we call a pneumatic trough. So in this pneumatic trough, we are going to be filling this up with water to a pretty high level. We have to be able to fit our fingers underneath here, because what we're doing is we are filling up this graduated cylinder with water, and then we are covering it with a little plastic sheet and inverting it into the trough. So we need to be able to slip our fingers underneath here, underneath this water, so that when we take our fingers out, all the water from this graduated cylinder doesn't end up coming out. So you don't want to be too high in terms of the water, but you don't want to be too low. If you're inverting your graduated cylinder and you're starting to have bubbles come up into your graduated cylinder when you're just pulling at your hand, that means you need to top off the water level a little bit higher in the pneumatic trough, and then just try that again. Now, when you do invert your graduated cylinder, what you want to make sure is that it's within the 10 and 20 milliliter range. The reason is that a lot of graduated cylinders don't actually have graduations in this part of the cylinder. Now, there are some that do, from 0 to 10, and if yours is one of those, then you can certainly start your level there. But for the ones that we have, most of them do not have graduations between 0 and 10, just that they start after 10, 20, 30, 40. So what you want to try to do is you want to try to get your initial V1 level in this area. Now, before we do that, we do have to set things up a little bit. So after we invert our graduated cylinder, what we're going to do is we're going to pinch off the tube here and try to insert this about an inch into the graduated cylinder. After you've done that, then you're going to calculate your V1, or not calculate, but eye level determine your V1. So you're going to go to eye level and you're going to see where is this V1. And just like all of our measurements, we always want to measure from the bottom of that meniscus. In this particular case, we are going to try to get one decimal place. So let's call that 13.1 ml, and that would be, for example, our V1. Okay, now why between 10 and 20? We don't know how much gas is going to be produced. So if we start somewhere at like 50, we might not actually have enough volume to displace for this reaction. Like if the reaction keeps going and we don't have any more volume to displace, then we're going to have to start over again. So it's better to just try to go as high as possible, around like 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 milliliters, somewhere around there, so that you'll have ample space in case you do produce a bit of gas. All right, so what we're going to do next is we are going to fill up our Erlenmeyer flask with 10 milliliters of our acid, and we're going to put that into our Erlenmeyer flask. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take our piece of magnesium, and we're just going to sand it down a little bit using some steel wool, brush it off, and as mentioned in the lab papers, don't breathe in the magnesium or the steel wool. Just take a damp cloth and wipe your counter off. You should have a relatively shiny piece of magnesium. Now, then what you're going to do is you're going to mass that. You're going to weigh that on the scale and record that in your trial. All right, so at this point, we are ready to go. We have a nice shiny piece of magnesium. We have our acid ready to go. We have our graduated cylinder with our delivery tube inside of it. We are ready to go. Now, one thing to keep in mind just before we go is that you want to make sure that you don't have a lot of water in your delivery tube. You will have a little bit, but if you have a delivery tube that's like full of water like this, you might not have enough pressure in your gas creation to actually push all that water through. So when you're doing this, just try to be cognizant about how much water is actually in that tube, so that you don't get stuck and then you see bubbles are being created here in this area over here, but they're not actually bubbling through. It usually is as a result of too much water. Okay, so now that we have that, we've accounted for all those different things. We're going to put our magnesium into our Erlenmeyer flask and we're going to stopper it. Again, don't jam the stopper in. You just need enough so that the gas is not going to be coming out. And then what happens is that as the reaction happens, bubbles are going to be created, and those bubbles or the gas is going to go through our delivery tube and start displacing our graduated cylinder. So as the reaction happens, what we're going to start seeing is that as the gas bubbles up into this area over here, it's going to start displacing some of this water. This water level is going to go down. And so usually at the end of the lab, we'll have a water level that looks something like this. So once the bubbles have stopped in our graduated cylinder, or sorry, in our Erlenmeyer flask, we are going to be ready to calculate our V2. So we're going to get again to eye level, and we're going to figure out our V2. So we'll just come up with a data set here, 46.3 ml. Okay, so if we have our V1 and our V2, and we have our mass, okay, so we can just make a random mass here. We will record all of that data into our trial for V1. Now you're ready to restart. You can just rinse this out quickly, put that into the waste disposal bin. This you'll just have to reset. Now, as you do more and more trials, you're going to notice that your trough is getting fuller and fuller and fuller with water, and it might start overflowing. So just keep an eye on it. If you need to get rid of some water from your trough, that's fine, do that. But it's a pretty easy reset to be able to do a second, third, fourth, fifth trial. All right, so with this data, we would put it into our table, and we have some data sets over here. Okay, so this is an example of a reaction or a set of reactions that someone collected data on. You can start seeing that they did 4 trials. They calculated their V1s, V2s, and mass for every single one. They also included in their data tables a column for their delta V. Now, here is just dV, but you can also see this as delta V. It is the same thing. So in this case, they gave a little bit of space so they can calculate their delta Vs here. And they also recorded all the pertinent information for the acid, as well as the volumes of acid they're using for each trial. And then at the beginning of the lab, they were asked to record the pressure and the temperature. And at the end of the lab, they were also asked to record the pressure and the temperature there. So in this particular case, the goal of this calculation is to determine the percentage yield. And we know that percentage yield is AY, actual yield, over TY times 100. Now, the added complexity to this particular calculation is that we are looking for the molar volumes of your AY and your molar volume of TY. Now, remember what molar volume is? It's in liters per mole. So both of these would have to be in a unit of liters per mole and liters per mole. So that's the added complexity of this particular calculation. We would do that times 100, and we get our percentage yield. Now, I'm going to give you a kind of overview of how to do the calculations, and then you can apply these actual numbers using this data set to try to figure out your actual percentage yield. So when it comes to this, obviously, step number 1 is going to be collect the data, right? We need to collect the data in a way that is usable and is very, very clear. So we created a table. We had all of our data collected in our trials, and we also included a section for our data that we need for our acids and our atmospheric conditions. Once you've collected the data, the next thing you want to do is calculate your delta Vs. So you want to look at your V2 minus your V1, and that is going to give you your delta Vs for this particular case. Once you have all of that, this next step is that you want to calculate the average for your delta Vs and your mass. So in this particular case, we don't know which data we're going to use, if we're going to use all 4 trials or only 3 trials, but we want to take an average of these as well as an average of these, because these are what we're going to actually use for our calculations. Next thing is that we need to start looking at how we're going to do our molar volumes. Now, one important point is that this mole here in the molar volume is from our limiting reagent. And what we know is that in order to do a limiting reagent, we need a balanced equation. And this also helps us figure out our TY. So the next thing that we're going to need to do is step number 4 is we're going to need a balanced equation, and don't forget your states, and even to see if that equation is going to, or if that reaction is actually going to happen. This is going to give rise to our ratios that we're going to be able to use in our next step, which is calculating, find the limiting reagent. Okay. Now, remember that I'm not going to go through the individual steps of finding your limiting reagents, but you have to convert into moles, use your mole ratios, and then we're going to choose a product to compare. So for this one, make sure you're going to use the gas for the comparison. Okay, so use the gas for the comparison because you're going to try to find the theoretical yield of that gas, so it might as well just do it right away. This, again, from here, you're going to get two important things. You're going to get the mole of your limiting reagent, which is what you're going to use for your molar volume, and then you're going to find your theoretical yield, okay? Now, it's going to be in moles, but we'll be able to convert that a little bit later on. All right, now once we have our limiting reagent, we can start finding our actual and our theoretical yield. So let's do our easier one first. We're going to find the molar vol of your actual yield. Now, we already do have your actual yield. It's this. It's the average of our gas that was collected. So this is your average of gas collected. Okay, so we had this, and we had this in milliliters. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to convert into liters. And then we are going to calculate the molar volume, which again is liters of your actual yield divided by your moles of your LR. Okay, so your actual yield and your moles of your LR. So whatever the mole of your limiting reagent you found over here, you're going to divide your volume here by that moles, and we are going to get our molar volume. Now, next is going to be, we have our AY. Next thing that we need to find is our molar volume of our TY. Okay, now we found our theoretical yield of our gas right over here, but it was in moles. Now, okay, what we need to find is we need to convert this into liters. And how do we do that? Well, we can use PV equals nRT and solve for V. Okay, so if we go that, we do that. Now, in order to do this, we need, so this right here is going to be your theoretical yield in moles of your gas. This right here is our gas constant. Now, we are going to be using kPa because our original data that we wrote down is in kPa, and we also have our temperature. So this is where those things come into play. So we're going to use our gas constant that includes kPa. This is going to be our temperature average because we had a T1 and a T2, but remember that it has to be in Kelvin. So a second part to this is average your pressures, average your temperatures, and then convert that into Kelvin because you are going to need that for this. And then again, this pressure is going to be your average pressure from those data that we had at the beginning. So again, we want to take an average out of this. So this plus this divided by 2, that's going to give our average. This plus this divided by 2 is going to give us our average temperature. And then we just need to add 273 to convert that into Kelvin. All right, so once we do that and we plug that all in, we're going to get our liters of Ty. But again, we need our molar volume. So remember that our molar volume is liters per mole. And again, this is going to be liters of your Ty, and this is going to be mole of your limiting reagent. And once we get that, we are going to get our molar volume. So we've been able to get our molar volume for our AY. We've been able to get our molar volume for our Ty. And then we're able to do our final calculation, which is our percentage yield, AY over TY times 100. So we will have our molar volume from our AY and our molar volume from our TY, and we'll be able to get that, that result there. Okay, so that's a high-level kind of overview of the calculations and how to do it as well as the experiment. What I encourage you to do is take this data over here and try to work through those calculations. Now, I'm going to give you a hint that you're going to have some issue with data, the third data point, and you have to decide whether or not it is wise to use it, okay? Now, I'm giving you that example for a reason, or I'm telling you that for a reason. So think about it really, really wisely if you want to use that data point in your average. Okay, so that means using this. So if you decide you're not going to use this data, you can't use this data for your average either. We basically are just going to cross that entire data set out. Alrighty. Now, if you still need a little bit of assistance or if you want to check your answer, there is a secondary video or a follow-up video to this that goes through this particular example and does all of these calculations so you can follow along or you can check your answer. And hopefully that will set you up for success with this particular calculation. I hope that helped. As always, please like and subscribe and share the video with your colleagues or your peers that are also having issues with this calculation. And we'll see you on the next one. Have a nice one.